Hello, happy Thursday to everyone out there. To start off today's show, we're going to get into a player who I think could make a big push for a full-time roster spot this upcoming season. That's coming up right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at @Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen / watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So let's jump right into it. The player that I teased for the opening segment of today's show is none other than Ty Smith. This is a player I've gotten a lot of requests about from listeners / watchers of the show, and for good reason. You all want to see what the Penguins have in this kid, as do I. Going back to last September when training camp and the preseason wrapped up, I openly said on this show that he should be on the team full-time, that he is better than just an AHL defenseman. He had a really good camp. He really impressed me in that final preseason game. The reason he wasn't on the team, though, was because Ron Hextall screwed up the salary cap so freaking badly. Remember, they only had like $10,000 of salary cap space. That's what happens when you trade for Jeff Petrie in his full $6.25 million cap hit. That's what happens when you sign Yaruda, almost a $3 million cap hit. You sign Josh Archibald. Later, you trade for Mikhail Granlund. He was so bad with the cap. It's not going to be an issue here, I don't think, with Kyle Dubas, but that is the main reason why Smith only played 9 games in the NHL this past season. Now, he came up for one brief stint. That was it. In that stint, did score a goal, had 4 points in 9 games. The goal came against the Vegas Golden Knights on January 5th, a 5-2 loss to the Knights. And when he was up here for those 9 games, I came away honestly super impressed. I liked his shot that he showed in those games. He can also jump into the rush with ease. His skating ability is off the charts, if you ask me. I think in terms of all the defensemen that are currently on the roster right now, he is the second best skating defenseman on the team behind Chris Letang. And that's no slight to Marcus Pettersson. I love his skating ability, but the way Smith skates with the puck, you can't teach that. The talent, you can easily see it's there. It's all about cleaning up the other parts of his game to round him out to be a good NHL defenseman. I also really liked how he quarterbacked the top power play unit. It didn't have a lot of success, but the power play wasn't that successful even when Chris Letang or Jeff Petrie were on it. But I liked his ability to fire the puck. Any chance he got from the point, he just put it to the net, looking for a deflection from Jake Gensel, looking for something from Sidney Crosby. I really enjoyed that aspect of his game as well. So I came away fairly impressed from his 9-game sample during about the halfway point of this past season. Finished the season in Wilkes Barre, played in 39 games, 7 goals, 24 points. Missed a little bit of time with the facial fracture, but when he came back, he played super well. 9 points in those final 9 games, played on the top pairing in Wilkes Barre. I definitely think he is too good for the AHL. Either way, I think this player will be on the roster this upcoming season, but it's going to come down to whether he'll be an extra or whether he will be getting full-time minutes above P.O. Joseph, maybe above someone else. And that's going to come down to Kyle Dubas and what he thinks is best for this defensive group. I've been on record and said that this team needs another top 4 defenseman, and I will keep banging the drum until that happens. I've seen other people say that the Penguins need 2 top 4 defensemen to push maybe someone else out of the lineup. But if your left side is something like Noah Hannafin / Ryan Graves, Marcus Pettersson, and then P.O. Joseph / Ty Smith, that's pretty good. Where you get into problems is if your left side is Marcus Pettersson at the top, P.O. Joseph manning your second pairing, and then Ty Smith. There's not enough experience on the left side. And I'm sorry, I mean no offense to Marcus Pettersson. I don't think he is a number one left shot D on a contending team. You mean someone else there that is a bit better than him. So Pettersson can eat up those second pairing minutes, and then you can have a competition on your third pairing with P.O. Joseph and Ty Smith. Smith is a very talented player. He didn't just forget to play hockey. That's what some people said about his second season in New Jersey when he slumped really hard. Still had 20 points that season, but he was a tire fire in his defensive zone, and the Devils thought they couldn't really rescue him, so they shipped him off to Pittsburgh for Marino. I know it's worked out really well for them so far because Marino had a great year for them this past year, but maybe there's a chance this works out good for both teams if Smith actually does get a chance. His best season with the Devils came his rookie year, had 23 points in 48 games. You don't just average half a point per game by accident. The talent is obviously there. It's all up to the coaching staff to fully unlock it. Now, if Smith does make the team out of camp, you're going to need to put him with someone who is defensively responsible. Smith is an offensive defenseman. He's going to skate the puck out of danger in the defensive zone. He's going to jump into the rush really aggressively. He has a really nice shot, good playmaking ability, can quarterback your power play, but he's going to give it all back in the defensive zone. That's why you need to have a defensively responsible partner for him if he, maybe he does win out a battle with P.O. Joseph, if that's the way it goes, or, maybe he gets, 20 to 30 games as an extra if someone else goes down. You need to put someone else there with him that can clean up the mess that he will probably leave in the defensive zone. That's just not his game. Now, will he be able to work on that part of his game? Absolutely. You don't just want players to stink defensively. But from what I have seen, what I've watched, the numbers, he's not defensively responsible in his own end. And that's going to have to change a little bit. And you're going to have to put a player with him that can help. But I am really intrigued about him heading into this season. If you're asking for my prediction, I do think he's going to make the team out of camp. I think, I personally, if he just does what he did in training camp in the preseason last year, he'll be on the team here no matter what. We'll just have to see what his role is. But they got to find out sooner rather than later what they have in him, because that was a big trade that Hextall made. I know Kyle probably would not have made that trade. I don't know if any other general manager would have made that trade. But it's over with. It's done. Got to see what you have. And I'm really intrigued about him heading into this upcoming season. My personal prediction, he makes the team, probably starts out as an extra, but I think he plays 25 to 30 games for the Penguins this upcoming season. Not in a full-time capacity, because I think it's going to go to POJ at first, considering his experience, considering his play with a puck on his stick this past season. But I do think you will see him on the team. He is too good to play in the AHL. He ate up those minutes like it was nothing this past season. Had a good amount of points. Averaged a point per game after he came back from his facial fracture. He's a really solid player. And I'm excited to see what he can do at the NHL level, on a more of a full-time basis. So that wraps up this first segment of today's episode. Let me know what you think about Ty Smith down in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also send me a DM on social media and any other platforms. Do you think Ty Smith should make the roster? And do you think he will make the roster? And I'll even throw this out there. Do you think that he will play over P.O. Joseph on the third pairing? So let me know your thoughts about that down in the comments. You can also send me a DM and all that. But coming up for the second segment, looking at another goaltender for the Penguins this upcoming offseason, and that is Joonas Korpisalo, formerly of the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Los Angeles Kings. Could he make sense on a quote-unquote bridge short-term deal? I'm going to get into that coming up after this break. But before we discuss that, we have to get into Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you will have. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. The Game Time guarantee, that just means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section, row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, and we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen / watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. So, Joonas Korpisalo, I'll admit, my friends, when I first saw him as an option on the free agent market, I scoffed at it just because he was not good in Columbus for most of his career. But that changed in a big way this season when he had a .913 save percentage on one of the 5 worst teams in hockey. The Jackets were a lottery team, and he still had an above average save percentage when you look at a lot of the other goaltenders in the league. He then gets dealt to Los Angeles Kings at the trade deadline, part of the Gavrikov deal. And in 11 games after the deadline, goes 7-3-1 and has a .921 save percentage and a 2.13 goals against average. Played in their first round series against the Oilers, had an .892 save percentage, only won them 2 games, but the Kings were just totally outmatched against the Oilers. They could not keep up with them offensively, but he played even better with Los Angeles than he did with Columbus. And obviously it helps to have a much better team around you, but he had a really good year overall. And honestly, I think this season kind of saved his career a bit because he was on a downward trajectory coming into the season before he had a really strong year. And this is a type of player that I think Dubas could definitely go after on the free agent market. Remember, he went after Ilya Samsonov and Matt Murray, 2 more low-key options on the goaltending market last year. Ended up working out, especially with Samsonov, because he led them to the playoffs and the Leafs got their first series win in almost 20 years. But he didn't go after a big-name goalie. He went after 2 guys who were, I guess, undervalued around the league. And you can say what you want about him for that, but he got decent results from Samsonov, and Murray, when he was healthy at least, played okay. And I think with Korpisalo, with the year he had, he is another goaltender who I think could be a little bit undervalued around the league, especially when you look at his contract projection. Daily Faceoff is projecting him to get only 2 years, $2.6 million per season. Sign me up for that every single day of the week. If that is one of your starting netminders and you can get someone else for cheap, and maybe you only have 4.4, 4.5 million tied up to your goalies, that is best case scenario. Maybe that is Casey DeSmith, but I would also argue that you should move on from him and get someone else in there. Maybe that's like a Joey Decord who had a really good year in the AHL. He's someone who doesn't have a lot of experience at the NHL level. His numbers are a bit down, but in terms of his play at Coachella Valley this season, he was very good. Could definitely see him pushing for some starting time on an NHL team this season. But if you can get Korpisalo below $3 million per season on a 2 to 3 year deal, he'll give you 40 to 45 games. You can get someone to back him up or have him be in a platoon role, play 30 to 35 games behind him. I think that could be a very strong bet for Dubas and company. He won't have to pay premium assets to go out and get a Connor Hellebuck or a UC Saros or trade for Jeremy Swayman's rights. You can go out and get someone like a Korpisalo who can give you at least average goaltending to above average goaltending, and you can bring in someone else that can stabilize behind him, because you need to have as little money tied up in your goaltending as possible. At least that's how I see it. Unless you're a prime Connor Hellebuck, a prime UC Saros, a prime Igor Shesterkin, Andrei Vasilevsky, you should not be paying big money to goaltenders. That's why I kind of laughed at the Capitals doing a 5x5 for Darcy Kemper last year. I like Darcy Kemper just fine. I don't think he's worth $5 million per season. Tristan Jarry, I don't think he's worth what Evolving Hockey says he's worth, which is over $6 million per season at a 5 or 6 year term. That's ridiculous. But with Korpisalo, he checks off a lot of boxes. He's a goalie that Dubas, I think, would go after. He's seen him up close. He hasn't had him on the Leafs, but he's seen his team go up against the Jackets in a playoff series, remember, in the bubble. And I think he would have serious interest in Korpisalo. Obviously, the Penguins will not be the only team that would have interest in him. He would have interest in probably over half the teams around the league that think he could start, think he could be a 1B in a platoon role. But I really like him as an option for the Penguins. In terms of free agency options, he is right up there at the top of the list, with Frederik Andersen. If you can somehow finagle a way to get Jarry to come back at a decent cap hit, maybe you do that. But I'm also at the point now where I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to go somewhere else. But outside of Jarry, Frederik Andersen, Joonas Korpisalo, Antti Raanta, I think those are your best options. Adin Hill, I would put in there as well, but Hill has probably priced himself out of Pittsburgh. He's going to get a massive contract from a team, and it's going to be hilarious to see him turn probably back into a pumpkin, to be honest. But I am big on him. Put up really good numbers on a bad Columbus team. His numbers improved on a better Kings team, and I think they would kind of stay similar to what they were this past season on a Penguins team that I think you are going to see some major changes made to over the offseason. So that is another goaltending option on the free agent market. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. You can also send me a DM. Would you consider signing Joonas Korpisalo to a cheap deal, maybe low around $3 million, 2.5, 2.6 million, something like that? But that does it for the second segment. Coming up to end the show, we're going to have a fun, silly season idea with a big trade for a defenseman. It's someone that Kyle Dubas has gone after before, and maybe he could do it again now that he is the president of hockey operations with the Penguins. So that's coming up after this break. But before we get into that, we have to discuss Bird Dogs. They make you look so good. They're some of the most comfortable shorts I've ever had the pleasure of wearing. They are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. They do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way, way better. And they also fit way better than regular shorts that are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. They fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Bird Dogs also use anti-sting sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. You can go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you that. All right, I'm back in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. So the crazy, silly season idea I have to end the show is Kyle Dubas trading for San Jose Sharks defenseman Erik Karlsson. Nope, don't pause the show. Don't turn me off. Just hear me out. Dubas has gone after him before. He made trade calls on Karlsson when he was the Leafs GM this past season. So he obviously likes him. And there's at least a little small chance that he could go after him again as Penguins president of hockey operations. The Sharks are also looking to get rid of him, even though he just finished the season with 25 goals and 101 points. Makes $11.5 million for the next 4 seasons. And the best part is, even though it's probably a low percentage to happen, the Penguins can make this work. If you just package one of Mikhail Granlund or Jeff Petrie plus a decent pick and a prospect, I think the Sharks may go for that. I don't think they're looking for a ton in return for a 33-year-old defenseman. Even though he just had a career year, he's 33 and he's making $11.5 million for the next 4 seasons. I don't think they're going to be looking to break the bank here in terms of a return. And that could favor the Penguins if they were to go down that path. You would also need the Sharks to retain, I'm guessing, maybe $1 to $2 million. Maybe you have him at $9.5 million for the next 4 seasons. Maybe you even get a broker to come in to help out with that contract. So you're only maybe paying him $7 million, something like that. But still, This would be a lot of fun. You'd get so much offense from him. 20 of his 25 goals this past season came at 5-on-5. His 2.3 points per 60 rate at 5-on-5 was first among all defensemen who played in the NHL this season. He is all offense, no defense. The Penguins would need someone to come in and be a defensive presence in the defensive zone. There was a time when Erik Karlsson was above water when it comes to playing in his defensive zone. 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. That time has long passed. Per Evolving Hockey, he ranked in the 5th percentile this past season in 5-on-5 even strength defense. 95% of his peers were better than him at defending in their own zone. If you go to JFresh Hockey, he ranked in the 0 percentile for 5-on-5 even strength defense. That is how bad he is in the defensive zone. You would have to pair someone, maybe like a Marcus Pettersson, maybe someone else from a different team that you can come in to play for cheap for you, to play with Karlsson if this were to go down. But you're not going to rely on him to play defense in the defensive zone. But if Letang gets hurt, he can step up and play top pairing minutes for you like it's nothing. He can quarterback either of the Penguins' power play units. Honestly, I'd argue putting him on the first power play unit because as much as I like Chris Letang on there, Karlsson is a better power play quarterback. He's been that way his entire career. But man, this would be so much freaking fun. A right side that includes Letang and Karlsson, even though that's a good chunk of money tied up to your top 4 defensemen on your right side, it would be all offense. At least Letang can give you a decent amount of defense in his own zone. I know people don't like his defense in his own zone, but I think people are just seeing what they want to see when it comes to that. With Karlsson, you actually have a legit guy because he can't play defense. But this is something that I think the Penguins could do if they wanted to. I don't think they're going to be one of the top rumor destinations for Karlsson, but they could make it work. I don't know if Jeff Petrie has the Sharks on his 15-team no-trade list, but if he doesn't, you can send him there. The Sharks would potentially take someone back who can provide a little bit of the offense that Karlsson is taking with him to Pittsburgh. I'm sure they would also sign maybe someone else to help provide the other part of the offense that Karlsson is taking with them. And I'm sure they would want a draft pick, a prospect. They're really just trying to get out of this contract. The Sharks are rebuilding here. Again, he's already 33. I think the Penguins could get at least 2 solid years out of Karlsson. And that's the big thing for me, people. Sidney Crosby has 2 years left on his contract. You are in win now mode. This would be a win now move for the Penguins if they were able to somehow pull this off. I'm not worried about what Karlsson looks like when he's 35, 36, 37, the final year of his deal. Whatever. The Penguins are probably not going to be good at that point. But for these next couple of seasons where the Penguins, I know, are going to still be contending in the Sidney Crosby era before I'm sure he re-signs, but at a lower cap hit, you have to go all in when you can. And this move would show that the Penguins are truly all in on winning a Stanley Cup for not just this season, but the season after that. Again, I think the chances of it happening are extremely low, but I would be in favor of it if you can make a deal that makes sense because the offense that he provides is second to none. It's more than what Letang gives you. And that's saying something. I think Letang is one of the most offensively gifted defensemen in the league. Karlsson is just that much better. This guy has been one of the best defensemen on the planet numerous times. So I would look into it. If you can't do it, you can't do it. But it would sure be crazy, and it would sure be a lot of fun to watch. That's for sure. But that'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I really appreciate all of you listening / watching this one. I'll be back with another episode for you all on Friday to wrap up the week before we get into draft week next week and free agency. It's going to be absolutely crazy these next 8 or 9 days. Just keep it right here on Locked On Penguins for everything regarding the Pittsburgh Penguins. So I'll talk with you all again on Friday.